Today I have an important topic that I want to express to all of you, and what it really has to do is keeping the vision and the promise alive in your life, to be able to know that there's an end game to the destiny of your human existence, to realize that no matter what's happening, no matter what's unfolding around you, keep yourself always focused on the whole understanding of a vision of promise, where one day the lion will lie down with the lamb. People will be able to live for a very long time before they succumb to the power of death. Everyone will have ample food, they will have adequate shelter, their clothing needs will be met, and there will be peace, as we would expect peace to be. People working very hard toward helping each other, especially the less fortunate in our society. Now, if we look at the book of Isaiah, what's happening, and I want you to understand that the book of Isaiah is divided at least by 4 different authors. And the sections of the chapters between 56 to 66 is Isaiah number 3. So third Isaiah is our author in this text, and what he's doing is he's speaking to a nation that's just returned from Babylonian captivity, who now get to inherit their land, and all they see is devastation. And Isaiah is calling them to wake up, to be spurred with a vision of a promise, of a better future that is yet to come, and that they can facilitate this process by simply getting back to work, rebuilding their temple, and taking courage and commitment in the views by which they know that there is a future that will be very rewarding for all of them. Now in 2 Thessalonians, Paul is telling a congregation that is facing much persecution, and also in some cases a shortage of food and supplies for their community, particularly those who are more vulnerable in their fellowship, that there is a time in which they need to not be idle, but to be busy about their work, to be able to provide whatever help they can to the lesser members of their community, and to be basically models of Christ, as Paul was a model for them when he was with them. When he took food from them, he paid them, showing his deep appreciation. He expected nothing in return. But there are some people in the community of faith who are, for whatever reasons, laxed in their participation. I think all of us can identify with that at some point, where not enough people are coming forward to really see that the work gets done. And so Paul is saying, ignore them, spur them to work, spur each other to work, and try to be a bonus and help by imitating the faith of Christ. And finally, the Gospel of Luke, a story you're all familiar with. I'm not going to go into great detail, just to simply say this. You have the disciples admiring the temple built by King Herod, just finished under his reign. And it's a beautiful temple. It's outstanding. And all the rich offerings being given to God are also impressive. And they get so caught up in the structure that they see that Jesus says, "Where is your heart? Is it in this structure? Or is it in a promise of a vision that is yet to happen? Is it just the building that you hold to be sacrosanct? Or is it the quality of life that you wish to build?" And of course they look at him and they say, "Master, what are you talking about?" And he says, "Well, these stones, one day they won't be around." Now, you have to remember that the book of Luke was written several years long after Jesus was gone, roughly speaking about 70 to 75 years. And these words are really the author saying, look what Rome did to us in 70 AD when they tore our temple down. Now what do we do? And so Jesus goes into this long story about the end times and what will happen. Nation lifts up sword against nation, and there's famine, and there's devastation, war, etc., etc. All these terrible things. And he says all of these things are going to come to pass, including persecution. And you in the church will face tremendous persecution for your faith. And even some of you will die. But take comfort. God will give you the words you need, will provide the vision that's necessary so that he can cradle you through these difficult times. All right, vision of a promise. How does this all happen in our lives? And one of the first things I think is most important, and I said it last Sunday, so I'll be brief with this point. Stop looking at the devastation that's around you. Try not to get pulled in by the mass media that tell you that the world seems to be going to hell in a handbasket. Don't let the world tell you that somehow that there's no promised future for you. Don't buy into all the soothsayers and the future prophets and the political commentaries that get you all wound up so that somehow you will be afraid. Take your life one step in front of the other. Rebuild that which God would want you to rebuild. And as much as the world is falling apart, focus on that which is most important, which is your life, your family, your community. And wait for the eventual coming of a new future with the vision that has already been instilled deep within your heart and mind and conscience. And work toward it. Make it the focus of everything that you do. Despite everything coming apart at the seams, don't lose hope. Sustain yourself with the picture in your mind of what the world could be or should be or will be. But you have to work at it. So don't be distracted from your game plan. Do the best you can with the resources that you have to see your future become its ultimate fruition and reward. Number 2, a vision of promise also requires that we live into that promise, which means that we have to imitate the life of Christ. Let's not be idle and wait for someone else to do the work for us. Let's not be laxed and slack in our commitment to that which we call community. Let us be able to give what we can, when we can, wherever we can, and let's stop looking at each other and saying, who is doing more than someone else is? There is no point in grading everybody as to their commitment level. It just doesn't make an organization work effectively. Some people will shrink from their responsibilities out of whatever fears or commitments that they see as being greater than yours. But at the same time, those who are maximizing their energy, it's not time to say, I am giving so much that I'm going to fall and collapse because I'll have no strength to see it to its completion. Is also another way of denigrating the work you're working toward. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop comparing notes. Let's begin to take our responsibilities as individuals and imitate what Christ would want us to imitate. And what is it that we're to imitate? Love, compassion, challenging the powers who think that they are greater than the God whom we serve, to do justice, to resist evil, temperance, fortitude, justice. These are the values of Jesus. And these are the values by which we base our life and by which we wish to imitate our life. You'll recall in the story that I was giving to Stephen about what happened to me when I was a boy and how the basement collapsed. And I told you that my father never sought retribution to the person who built our home. He never sought any restitution. He never sought to take the person to court. That was his last thought. His only thought was for his family and to make do with what we had and to make sure we could transition out of this house that had collapsed into a safer environment. And the future will be what it will be when we get there. There was no point in blaming anybody. There was no point in going to the municipality and blaming them for building a house on a dump site. There's no point in going around and starting to protest of the inequity of it all. Instead, he took the responsibility of saying, my family comes first, so does my sick wife. Let's do something with this. And he did. And we all safely made it as far as we could. Life is about that kind of imitation, where we don't seek vengeance, we don't seek vendettas. We seek to make that which is right permanent, but not by belittling someone else. The imitation of Christ is to see people to their potential as well as ourselves, fulfilling those great virtues by which the world can be redeemed one person at a time. The early church in Thessalonica is facing persecution. As I said, shortages of food. For those particularly less fortunate in their community, some have slacked off, they're not as committed. Some are worried about the persecution and are saving themselves at the expense of others. But notice, there is no judgment, except that the fellowship encourage each other to meet the times that they face as a family. And my last point, no matter what happens, keep witnessing. Now, when I talk about the word witness, the root word is martyr, someone who dies for a cause, a martyr. But when I talk about witnessing, I'm not asking you to tell people what to believe or not to believe. I'm not asking you that they should somehow make assumptions around Christianity that you would wish them to do. That is not what witnessing is. Witnessing is living your life in the imitation of Christ by the virtues that I've just listed: temperance, fortitude, justice, resisting evil, seeking equity as far as equity can be given, the willingness to heal the sick, to bind up the brokenhearted. If you do these things, you are witnessing your faith. You are giving living testimony to everything that you've ever believed. And it's not just what the church has told you, but it's what instinctively you know the Spirit of God tells you every day. And if you do these three things, your vision will come. Maybe not in your lifetime, maybe not in mine, but in the future that still awaits. Amen.